All right, Vancouver Canucks. We'll start with Vancouver. We are going to spend some time talking about the Abbotsford Canucks today as well. We got Brandon Assel joining us at about 1:15. Excited to get him on, the play-by-play voice of the Abbotsford Canucks. They got game 2 tonight out in Abbotsford, a chance to beat the Bakersfield Condors and sweep this series, just like the Condors did last year to the Abbotsford Canucks. But I want to spend some time on the Vancouver Canucks here because I haven't had a chance to sit down with you since the end of season availabilities. I don't think we're going to rehash all of the quotes and what was said. I think we get the vibe. We get the feeling from the organization about how this offseason is going to start to move. We at least had a couple of our questions answered. Now we've had some time to process it. So I want to get into what we expect and what we want, because these are two very different things. This, you can hope for something to happen to the Vancouver Canucks. We can expect other things to happen. So I wrote down 3 of each, and I'll kind of start, and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. I'm sure we have some similar ones. I'm sure we have some different ones. We'll start with what do we expect to see happen this offseason for the Vancouver Canucks. The first one I'll bring up, I expect to see one trade involving either Brock Besser, Tyler Myers, or Connor Garland. I do expect that, and it's something that I guess I could want as well, because this one kind of fits into both for me. But I do expect them to be able to get one of these guys traded for something, whether it's a decent return coming back or whether it's not having to give too much to sweeten the deal. I expect one of those players to get traded.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the difference in terms of the difference between what I want and what I expect, to where, to take it a step further, I didn't even include Myers just because I think that's a bit more of a complicated situation. Obviously, you're going to try your best, but with this buyout payout day being September 15th, that's such an odd time to swing a deal. And by that point, even if you do carve some extra cap space, what are you going to do with cap space on September 15th? So it's not an easy sort of thing to do. I was looking at it as, all right, one of Besser, Garland probably traded, but here's the difference. I would have, in an ideal world, I would have liked to sort of make a trade without taking significant salary back, even if there's, not really much of a return there. What I expect, however, is a winger market that's probably similar to last year, where if you remember last offseason, we had a bunch of high-end wingers that we did not expect to hit the market. And that really affected things, where Matthew Tkachuk all of a sudden wants out. Kevin Fiala, Wild are in a cap crunch, and they have to ship him out. Mm-hmm. Columbus has to unexpectedly move Oliver Bjorkstrand out. Chicago decides to move Alex DeBrincat. Like, all of these star-level wingers. Bjorkstrand's not a star-level winger, but you know what I mean. He scored 28 goals last year.
You could make a serious argument are way better caliber players than Brock Besser and Connor Garland.
Exactly.
The rest of those guys,
So the problem is, teams, when they're up against a cap, the first thing they look at is, all right, we've got to shed money. Like the Canucks, exactly like the Canucks, they go, okay, if we need to shed salary somewhere, let's shed a winger. So if you do that, it creates a buyer's market, and it makes it more difficult. So what I'm expecting is that if you move one of those guys, it may be closer to a dollar in, dollar out deal. And you just have to hope that whatever player you take back, maybe that player's a defenseman, right? A number 4 or 5 defenseman.
Probably sort of overpaid, because you're going to have
probably slightly overpaid, similar to sort of Besser or like a Garland, where you look at it and go, that's a good player. He's probably a little bit rich. And maybe it's a shorter term deal. That's a benefit you get. But more so, you're looking to reallocate the money more so rather than clear it. Because again, in that ideal world, I'd love to just clear the salary out. But the more I'm thinking about it, it may be more realistic to reallocate it and have a defenseman. Maybe it's your left shot top 4 defenseman, your guy to play with Filip Hronek, so then OEL can bump down to a third pair.
That's interesting to me, because the player being traded back here is not going to be one that I think you have like a chance to really even be excited about, because the other team is literally moving that player out for a high-priced winger, who we just talked about the winger market. It just feels like that player is also you're probably getting a much lower quality player than Brock Besser does to your lineup for a team, but it's like another team is willing to upgrade their winger depth by giving up one of their, I think, 5-6 defensemen.
I mean,
that's
maybe
the way I can see it happening.
Like maybe or maybe not, right? One sort of possibility that I was floating through with Drancer was, and this is just purely hypothetical. I mean, I don't even know if Winnipeg feels this way, but the Jets, for example, have a lot of these like number 4 or 5 types of defensemen. and they could use some sort of scoring on the wings. So it's like, what if you create some sort of deal around a player like Brendan Dillon, who's a sort of physical, sort of stay-at-home type defenseman, and is Dillon a world beater? Is he a high-end top four defenseman? No. But is he a competent second pair guy? Is he going to check off a lot of the boxes the Canucks need in terms of physical guy who can kill penalties and is a better stylistic fit for what the Canucks need? Yeah, potentially. And his contract expires at the end of next season. So it's like, in that sort of way, you'd get the long-term benefit of okay, that like after next season, you'd have all that money available to do whatever you'd want with it.
Mm-hmm.
And in the short term, you're able to, potentially, if you believe that the Canucks need sort of, if you look at that sort of player and go, okay, he can play top 4 minutes for us, then he may be a better fit for what this Canucks in the lineup needs. So that's the sort of thing. And I'm not talking about, oh, they should do that specifically. I'm just sort of, those are the types of things that, when Drance and I were just casually talking about the Canucks' winger situation and what can they do and sort of different trade possibilities, like that was the type of thing that came to mind as like okay, if you're not able to outright clear the salary out, which would be the ideal case, what are some plan B, plan C type scenarios?
Yeah, and you gain a little bit of money there for your cap kind of moving forward. Maybe that helps you with a third line center or something else you want to upgrade. But I think that's the thing that'll be interesting is that scenario and the way that you talked about it has to be a winger. It has to be Garland. It has to be Besser, Lavillier, maybe, if somebody wants to take a swing on that. I find it difficult, and it's going to be interesting because I thought last year's winger market was like the pendulum swung incredibly hard to one side of making the value so low. I don't know if it's going to swing that hard again this offseason. Like, I think it's going to be there. Like, wingers value on the trade market, free agency, all that, it's going to be lower. But with like a little bit of like a weaker free agency class this year, there's not really a guy who's going to come in and you're like for sure he's going to make an impact on day one of your lineup and be a top 6 guy moving forward. There's not many of those in free agency. Not every team's going to be able to pick up one. So I wonder if there is a little bit more of a market for wingers this year because of that. And maybe just with the cap and kind of knowing that it is coming up in the next couple of years, I wonder if there's a little bit more value for a player like Brock Besser or for Connor Garland to get another start somewhere.
Maybe you'd hope.